So good evening. It's a pleasure to speak to you. As I mentioned, my name is Ron Pookie. I'm an MD, works for Inspire Health, and actually I've been involved in integrative medicine, used to be called complementary medicine a long time ago, and holistic medicine when I began in 1975. Actually, we've just opened up a new center for Inspired Health right here in Victoria, where I'm speaking from, Victoria, British Columbia. We're going to have our official opening tomorrow, with one of the ministers of the provincial government presiding over our opening. And this will be the first really expansion of an integrated program into the mainstream of medicine really in the world, that we're going to take integrative cancer care, which is really about taking care of the you and the illness, and to bring that to large numbers of people in the province of British Columbia. So for myself personally, with another medical colleague, Dr. Jim Tucker, we started the first integrative center in Canada back in 1976, November the 1st. So this is the 35th anniversary of that event. A couple of young docs bringing some ideas about prevention and self-care to the community. And now, it's become much more a part of the mainstream, right? And soon to become a much more important of medicine itself as we integrate these models of self-care into, well, one of the most serious disease categories, cancer, and what a difference it makes both in quality of life and outcomes. So we're going to talk about prostate cancer tonight. And last week, my colleague, Lisa Marie Bhattacharya, we usually present, we have a 2-day seminar, we talk about self-care to our patients. And she and I present the segment on nutrition and foods and supplements. And we call the chapter Food is Medicine, because that's the primary focus of our work with patients from a nutritional point of view. And food is the main thing, but there is a place for supplements, and the superfoods of our nutrition sometimes have to be taken in capsule form or liquid form just to get them in, particularly when you've got cancer and your appetite may not be the same, or your assimilation may not be the same as it was if you were completely healthy. We'll also talk about vitamins and their place in cancer care, particularly for prostate. We'll keep it to prostate cancer. So let's move through and talk a little bit more about some of the things that Inspire Health does and who we are. We're definitely a national leader in integrative cancer care. It's the largest and longest standing center that does provide patients with care, body, mind, and spirit, you could say. It's a not-for-profit society. We have up till now treated 6,000 cancer patients over the past 14 years, which means about 600 a year. And now we're going to expand to 4 more places in British Columbia, so the numbers are going to increase. And indeed, next Monday will be our first day of seeing patients in Victoria in our new center. We're also the first physicians in Canada to be funded to provide integrated cancer care on a salary through the medical services plan. So most of our services are covered. There's no cost to see our physicians, myself included. Now, Inspire Health helps people with cancer to integrate the concept of health, which means taking care of yourself to the best of your ability, into cancer treatment and recovery. And there's growing evidence that this is an integrated approach, and you do get engaged in your own care. So there's something quite different about doing that than just basically submitting to the treatments, doing the normal things. If you do a little bit more for yourself, and when you begin the preventive program, you maybe should have started before you got the disease. It's not too late. We found clearly that most of the things we recommend, even for advanced cancers, say in non-prostate cancer, stage 4 cancers, when you begin to do them, you do better. You slow the disease down, you feel better, and by all the gauges of quality of life, you do better. So, and there's a whole pile of things around prostate cancer, only some of which is what I'm going to talk about tonight with supplements. So this integrated approach, it also reduces the likelihood of cancer recurrence. And even the exercise component itself reduces the risk of recurrence. And so a lot of urologists are talking about putting an hour of exercise a day into your program, because that has an effect controlling your weight. And the other part of it is diet as a cause of inflammation in the body, which itself promotes cancer. And we're going to talk about that today, and supplements that have an anti-inflammatory effect that can help reduce that risk. When we see patients individually at our center, we have our 2-day seminar, and then we have a whole bunch of classes we can tell patients to take. But first of all, we see them for amazingly enough an hour and a half to take all of the things that they've done for themselves in the past and change them around into an effective health plan. that they can do day by day, and we have nutritionists and counselors and exercise therapists to help people put that into action. So that's the program. It's very successful and a lot of fun to be working in this area because it's about patient empowerment. You know, the right to choose, to go into the treatments, not in a collapse sort of way, but more bringing up your strength. You know, a part of you that it's not a question of just of fighting the cancer, but using your will, your courage, your heart, your passion to change the way you behave so that the cancer itself in a way becomes less important, and your strength is reflective of the strength of your immune system and your ability to heal. So that's where we're aiming. So it's a whole person approach. An hour and a half visit, I really get a chance to know the person I'm talking with. And having done that, well before I came here, but for the last 4.5 years, I find that it's amazing what you can do with just a few key suggestions, the key ones for that individual, and give them an overall plan, and then the ability to execute it, for example, in this integrated center. And what we do recommend here, because if you look around the internet, there's lots of things out there. A lot of them don't have enough evidence. There's somebody's uncle did it, or there's an anecdote from a friend, do this, do that. We have chosen to do the things that there's been some research on. So all the things we recommend are evidence-based, and we change them when new research comes up to suggest that might not be the right way. But it's also wisdom-informed, because a lot of things we recommend and say and do are really common sense, and just practical ways of doing really enhanced self-care. I guess our idea is that you get stronger, and the cancer is not as strong as a result of that. You get stronger, your immune systems get stronger, and so your ability to resist the cancer, along with your treatments, to get a better regression and no recurrence at all, or much delayed recurrence. That's the theme. You stay strong, the cancer's not as strong. It gets weaker, you get stronger. I like metaphors. We also really believe in family and community involvement, support from your family and friends, and the message of your own self-care and your success sort of gets translated through all these layers, so everybody starts taking better care of themselves and gets involved in the path you've chosen, which is doing good things for yourself. So there is a definition of health that's been around for a long time, and I can actually say that this was after I was born. I wasn't walking all that well at the time, but I could get around. In 1946, the WHO defined health not merely as the absence of disease or infirmity, but a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And that can apply to society and as well as individuals. It's a great definition, and that's the thing we aim for: vibrant health. And here's the quote we start our presentation on nutrition and healthy nutrition and supplements. It is, let food be your medicine, and let your medicine be your food. Hippocrates wrote that 2,300 years ago, and it was a time when there weren't pharmaceutical companies around. Basically, nature was the supplier of everything, and good food kept you healthy. And then when you got sick, the second line, your medicine was again your food, by altering the diet, make it simpler perhaps, and also by including herbal medicine, because that was the medicine of the time. There's the main thrust. You heard Lisa Marie last week. There's an excellent diet, but the quality and diversity of modern foods have declined due to methods of production and to food processing. They're not the same sort of foods our grandparents ate. I'm talking about our grandparents, the people who are watching this. Because 80 years ago, everybody ate organic. Industrial farming really only came in the 30s, maybe just a little bit during the war, but certainly after the Second World War. Prior to that, the farms were small. They were self-sufficient. They recycled the materials. Food processing has also contributed to some of the decrease in quality of the foods we eat, in as much as we eat things that are more highly processed, and particularly when it comes to starches and carbohydrates. Over the years, since I've met all the major nutritionists in North America, including people like Andrew Weil, who've written books, and my own colleague that I teach with regularly, who we teach acupuncture to physicians, and he's one of the top nutritional physicians in the U.S. And in a way, where we're coming to is that foods that comprise our original diet are the ways to improve our nutrition. And that original diet began originally with a hunter-gatherer diet of up to 11,000 years ago. We were all eating in that fashion. We were hunting, we were gathering, and then with early agriculture, we merely began to domesticate some of the animals we hunted and began to cultivate the foods we gathered. Either way, it was always a regional diet. Things were fresh. and they were alive, and they had to compete in that environment. So the meat was much healthier. They weren't sitting in feedlots, the animals we ate. They ate their native vegetation and their original diets themselves, and we ate them. And together we formed that web of life. And we had to have pretty strong immune systems because we didn't have the same medicines as we have now, and yet we survived in difficult circumstances. And when we became involved with early agriculture, the same things happened. High quality superfoods that we dug out of the ground, that we picked, that we cultivated to eat the greens, the roots, the pollens, the flowers that were natural to these things. We began to sort of grow those special grasses, the wild rices. We began to grow them and cultivate them, and we had 10,000 years of traditional agriculture after that, all done organically, locally adapted foods. A lot of them superfoods that we'll talk about that came from our agricultural past, but originally was rooted in our original diet. So I guarantee you that's the big theme these days. So what I want to do now is go into the specifics of that and talk about superfoods and their extracts, because like I said, diet is the key thing. Foods themselves are the key things for us in this program. So a couple of things that we use right away are seeds, and especially ground flax. Its fiber lignans have anti-cancer effects in breast, prostate, and other cancers. Now you have to grind this seed, and you're going to want it to add it to things like smoothies, to your cereals, to salads. You don't want to cook it either, because the omega-3 oils that are present in ground flax, you want to have it just at the temperature as the food served. And it also has important fibers that have hormone sort of blocking effects for both women and men. So in prostate cancer, you want to block the androgens, and the lignan fibers of ground flax are very good at binding up the androgens that are circulating in your body and ultimately end up in your intestinal tract, and they're adsorbed to this fiber and taken out of your system through the bowels, and they sort of moderate and lower the levels of circulating androgens that come from the testes and the adrenals, and work well with androgen blockers to improve the outcomes of prostate cancer suppression. It's good as a preventive, it's good in early prostate cancer, and it's good for more advanced cancers. And the other really important item is fish oil omega-3s, the EPA and DHA. They have anti-inflammatory effects, and since cancers are inflammatory states, the cancer itself creates an inflammatory environment, which makes the cancer cells operate much more efficiently and much more difficult to stop because of that inflammatory environment. So when we change our overall state of our body to an anti-inflammatory state, our immune system, which is involved in inflammation, then is available to deal with the cancer, and will start to move in the direction of destroying the tumor. There's other superfoods besides the fish oils. Because fish oils basically required on a daily basis, and we're not eating fish 7 days a week, we recommend about 1,200 milligrams of fish oils. EPA is usually a little more than DHA and has a slightly stronger anti-inflammatory effect, but they're both important. They also help with diminishing the responses to side effects, that is, of chemotherapies in some cancers, and they don't interfere with the chemo. They're not an antioxidant. They just protect cell membranes. Garlic is a superfood. It's been around for a long time. The First Nations people in British Columbia started their allium family. It was called camas. It was passed down from generation to generation, and was guarded because of the medicinal effects that were known to be in that family. There's actually a professor at the University of Montreal who did a whole series of studies on extracts of vegetables on cancer cell lines, including prostate cancer cell lines. And some of these vegetable extracts had complete inhibiting effects on the growth of the cancer cells, basically killed them. And this is just the same as potent chemo drugs, actually.